Second Kings verses 21 to 25. Manasseh was 12 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem for 55 years. His mother's name was Hebzibah, and he did evil in the eyes of the Lord, following the detestable practices of the nations of the Lord, and the Lord had driven out before the Israelites. He rebuilt the high places his father Hezekiah had destroyed, and he also erected altars to Baal and made an Asherah pole, as Ahab, king of Israel, had done. And he bowed down to all of the starry host and worshipped them. He built altars in the temple of the Lord, in which the Lord had said, "In Jerusalem I will put my name." In the two courts of the temple of the Lord he built altars to all of the starry host. He sacrificed his own son in the fire, and practiced divination, sought omens, and consulted mediums and spiritualists. He did much evil in the eyes of the Lord, arousing his anger. He took the carved and made and put it in the temple in which the Lord had said to David and his son Solomon, "In this temple and in Jerusalem, which I have chosen out of all of the tribes of Israel, I will put my name forever. I will not again make the feet of the Israelites wander that I gave their ancestors, if only they will be careful to do everything that I had commanded them, and will keep them whole, the whole law that my servant Moses gave them." But the people did not listen. Manasseh led them astray, so that they did even more evil than the nations the Lord had destroyed before the Israelites. The Lord said through his servants and prophets, "Manasseh, king of Judah, has committed these detestable sins. He has done more evil than the Amorites who preceded him, and 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 has led Judah into sin with these idols. Therefore, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, said: I am going to bring such a disaster on Jerusalem and Judah that the ears of everyone who hears it will tingle, and will stretch out over Jerusalem the measuring line used against Samaria and the plumb line used against the house of Ahab. I will wipe out Jerusalem as one wipes a dish, wiping it and turning it upside down. I will forsake the remnant of my inheritance and give them into the hands of the enemies. They will be looted and plundered by all of their enemies. They have done evil in my eyes and have aroused my anger from the day of their ancestors came out of Egypt until this day. Moreover, Manasseh also shed so much innocent blood that he filled Jerusalem from end to end, because the sin that he had caused Judah to commit, so that they did evil in the eyes of the Lord. For all of the events of Manasseh's reign and all that he did, including the sin he committed, are not written in the book of annals of the kings of Judah. Manasseh rested with his ancestors and was buried in his palace garden, the garden of Uzzah, and Amon, his son, succeeded him as king. Amon, king of Judah, was 21 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem for 2 years. His mother's name was Meshullemeth, daughter of Harez. She was from Jatbah, and he did evil in the eyes of the Lord, as his father Manasseh did. And he followed completely the ways of his father, worshiping the idols his father had worshipped and bowing down to them. He forsook the Lord, the God of his ancestors, and did not walk in obedience to him. Amon's officials conspired against him and assassinated the king in his palace. And then the people of the land killed all who had plotted against King Amon, and they made Joshua his son, king of the palace. And as for the other events of Amon's reign and what he did, they are not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Judah. He was buried in his tomb in the garden of Uzzah, and Josiah his son succeeded him as king. The book of the law found. Josiah was 8 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem for 31 years. His mother's name was Jediah, daughter of Adiah. She was from Bokath, and he did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, and followed completely the ways of his father David, not turning aside to the right or to the left. In the 18th year of his reign, King Josiah sent the secretary, Shaphan, son of Azalath, the son of Meshullam, to the temple of the Lord. He says, go up to Hilkiah and the high priest and have him get ready the money that he had brought into the temple of the Lord, which the doorkeepers have collected from the people. Have them entrust it to the men appointed to supervise the work on the temple, and have these men pay the workers who repair the temple of the Lord, the carpenters, the builders, the masons. Also have them purchase timber and dressed stone to repair the temple, but they need not account for the money entrusted to them, because they are honest in their dealings. Hilkiah the high priest said to Shaphan the secretary, I have found the book of the law in the temple of the Lord. He gave it to Shaphan, who read it. Then Shaphan the secretary went to the king and reported to him, your officials have paid out the money that was in the temple of the Lord, and have entrusted it to the workers and supervisors at the temple. Then Shaphan the secretary informed the king, Hilkiah the priest had given me a book, and Shaphan read from it in the presence of the king. When the king heard the words of the book of the law, he tore his robes, and he gave these orders to Hilkiah the priest, Achim son of Shaphan, and Achbor son of Micaiah, Shaphan the secretary, and Isaiah the king's attendant, go and inquire of the Lord for me and for the people and for all Judea what is written in the book that has been found. Great is the Lord's anger that burns against us, because those who have gone before us have not obeyed the words of the law. They have not acted in accordance with all that was written there concerning us. Hilkiah the priest, Achim, Achbor, Shaphan, and Isaiah went to speak to the prophet Huldah, who was the wife of Shallum, son of Tikvah, son of Haras, keeper of the wardrobe. She lived in Jerusalem in the new quarter, and she said to them, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, said. Tell the man who sent you to me, this is what the Lord says. I am going to bring disaster on this place, its people, according to everything written in the book the king of Judea had read, because they have forsaken me and burned incense to other gods and aroused my anger by all of the idols that their hands have made. My anger will burn against this place and will not be quenched. Tell the king of Judea, who sent you to inquire of the Lord, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, said concerning the words you heard. Because your heart was responsive and you humbled yourself before the Lord, when you heard that I have spoken against this place and its people, that they would become a curse and be laid waste. And because you tore your robes and wept in my presence, I also have heard you declare the Lord. Therefore I will gather you to your ancestors, and you will be buried in peace. Your eyes will not see all of the disaster I'm going to bring this place. So they took her answer back to the king. Josiah renews the covenant. Then the king called together all the leaders of Judea and Jerusalem. He went up to the temple of the Lord with the people of Judea, the inhabitants of Jerusalem, the priests and the prophets, all the people from the least to the greatest. And he read in their hearing all the words of the book of the covenant, which had been found in the temple of the Lord. The king stood by the pillar and renewed the covenant in the presence of the Lord, to follow the Lord and keep his commandments, statutes, and decrees with all of his heart and all of his soul. thus confirming the word of the covenant written in this book. Then all the people pledged themselves to the covenant. The king ordered Hilkiah, the high priest, the priest next to in rank, and the doorkeepers to remove from the temple of the Lord all the articles made for Baal and Asherah, and all the starry host. He burned them outside Jerusalem in the fields of Kidron Valley, and took the ashes to Bethel. He did away with the idolatrous priests appointed by the kings of Judea to burn incense on the high places of the towns with Judea and those around Jerusalem. Those who burned incense to Baal, to the sun and the moon, the constellations, and to all of the starry Joshua pole from the outside Jerusalem, and buried it there. Ground He ground it to powder and scattered the dust over the graves of the common people. He also tore down the quarters of the male shrine prostitutes, and they were in the temple of the Lord. The quarters where women did weaving for the Asherah. Josiah brought all of the priests from the towns of Judea and decorated the high places from Geba and Beersheba where the priest had burned incense. He broke down the gateway at the entrance of the gate of Joshua, the city which had on the left of the city gate, although the priests of the high place did not serve at the altar of the Lord in Jerusalem. They ate unleavened bread with their fellow priests. He desecrated Tapsa, which was the valley of Ben Hinnom, so that one could use it to sacrifice their sons or daughters in the fire to Moloch. They removed from the entrance of the temple of the Lord the horses that the kings of Judea had dedicated to the sun. They were in the court near the room of an official named Nathan Melech. Joshua then burned the chariots dedicated to the sun. He pulled down the altars of the king of Judah. He erected on the roof near the upper room of Ahaz, and on the altars Messiah had built. In the two courts of the temple of the Lord, he removed them from there, smashed them to pieces, and threw the rubble into the Kidron Valley. The king also desecrated the high places where they were east of Jerusalem on the south of the hill of corruption, the one Solomon, king of Israel, had built for Ashtoreth in the vile goddess of the Sidrons, full of Ammon. Joshua smashed the sacred stones and cut down the Asherah pole and covered the bones. Even the altar at Bethel, the high place made by Jeroboam, son of Nebat, who had caused Israel to sin, even that altar and high place he demolished. He burned the high place and ground to its powder, and buried the Asherah pole also. Then Josiah looked around. When he saw the tombs that were there on the hillside, he had the bones removed from them and burned on the altar to defile it, in accordance with the word of the Lord proclaimed by the man of God who foretold these things. The king asked, "What is that tombstone I see?" The people of the city said, "It marks the tomb of the man of God who came from Judah, and pronounced against the altar of Bethel the very things you have done to it." "Leave it alone," he said. "Don't let anyone disturb his bones." So they spared his bones and those of the prophet who had come from Samaria. Just as he had done at Bethel, Joshua removed all the shrines at the high places when the kings of Israel had built in the towns of Samaria, and that he aroused the Lord's anger. Joshua slaughtered all the priests in those high places and on the altars and burned in human bones on them. Then he went back to Jerusalem. The king gave this order to all the people: "Celebrate the Passover of the Lord your God as it is written in this book of the covenant. Neither in the days of the judgment who led Israel, nor in the days of the kings of Israel, the kings of Judea, had any such Passover been observed. But in the 18th year of the king Joshua, this Passover was celebrated to the Lord in Jerusalem. Furthermore, Joshua got rid of the medium spirituous household gods and idols and all other detestable things seen in Judea and Jerusalem. This he did to fulfill the requirements of the law written in the book that Hilkiah the priest had discovered in the temple of the Lord. Neither before nor after Joshua was there a king like him who turned to the Lord as he did, with all his heart, with all his soul, with all his strength, in accordance with the law of Moses. Nevertheless, the Lord did not turn away from the heat of his fierce anger which burned against Judea, because of all that Messiah had done to arouse the anger. So the Lord said, I will remove Judea from my presence as I removed Israel. I will reject Jerusalem, the city I chose, and this temple about which I said my name shall be in there. For as for the other events of Joshua's reign and all he did, they are not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Judea. While Joshua was king, Pharaoh Necho, king of Egypt, went up to the Euphrates River to help the king of Assyria. King Joshua marched out to meet him in battle, but Necho faced him and killed him at Megiddo. Joshua's servants brought his body in a chariot from Megiddo to Jerusalem and buried Joshua's servants brought his body in a chariot from Megiddo to Jerusalem and buried him in his own tomb. And the people of the land took Jehoshaphat, son of Joshua, appointed him and made him king in place of his father, Jehoaz, king of Judah. Jehoaz was 23 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem for 3 months. His mother's name was Hamutal, daughter of Jeremiah. She was from Libnah. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord, just as his predecessors had done. Pharaoh Necho put him in chains at Riblah in the land of Hamath, so that he might not reign in Jerusalem. And he imposed on Jerusalem a levy of 100 talents of silver and 100 talents of gold. Pharaoh Necho made Eliakim, son of Joshua, take king in place of his father. Joshua in charge Eliakim's name to Jehoiakim. So he took Jehoahaz and carried him off to Egypt, and there he died. The people of the land according to their assessments. Jehoiakim, king of Judah. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem for 11 years. His mother's name was Zebediah, daughter of Pedaiah. She was from Ramah, and he did evil in the eyes of the Lord, just as his predecessors had done. Jehoiakim's reign. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, invaded the land, and Jehoiakim became a vassal for 3 years. But there he turned against Nebuchadnezzar and rebelled. The Lord sent Babylonian, Aramean, Moabite, Ammonite raiders against him. The Lord sent Babylonian, Aramean, Moabite, Ammonite raiders against him to destroy Judah, in accordance with the word of the Lord proclaimed by his servants, the prophets. Surely these things happened to Judah according to the Lord's command, in order to remove them from his presence because of the sins of Manasseh and all that he had done, include the shedding of innocent blood, for he had filled Jerusalem with innocent blood, and the Lord was not. Jehoiakim's reign and all that he did there are not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Judea. Jehoiakim rested with his ancestors, and Jehoiashim his son succeeded him as king. The king of Egypt did not march out from his own country again, because the king of Babylon had taken all his territory from the Wadi of Egypt to the Euphrates River. Jehoiashim, king of Judah. Jehoiashim was 18 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem for 3 months. His mother's name was Nehushta, daughter of Elnathan, and she was from Jerusalem. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord, just as his father had done. At that time, the officers of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, advanced on Jerusalem and laid siege to it. The Nebuchadnezzar himself came up to the city while his officers were besieging it. Jehoiachim, king of Judea, and his mother and his attendants, his nobles and his officials all surrendered to him. In the 8th year of the reign of the king of Babylon, he took Jehoiashim prisoner. As the Lord had declared, Nebuchadnezzar removed the treasures from the temple of the Lord and from the royal palace, and cut up the gold articles that Solomon, king of Israel, had made for the temple of the Lord. And he carried all Jerusalem into exile, all the officers and fighting men, all the skilled workers and artisans, a total of 10,000. Only the poorest people of the land were left. Nebuchadnezzar took Jehoiachim captive to Babylon, and he also took from Jerusalem to Babylon the king's mother, his wives, his officials, and the prominent people of the land. The king of Babylon also deported to Babylon the entire force of 7,000 fighting men, strong and fit for war, and 1,000 skilled workers and artisans. He made Mattaniah, Jehoiachim's uncle, king in his place, and changed his name to Zedekiah. Zedekiah, king of Jerusalem. Zedekiah was 21 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem for 11 years. His mother's name was Hamutal, daughter of Jeremiah. She was from Libnah, and he did evil in the eyes of the Lord, just as Jehoiakim had done. It was because of the Lord's anger that all of this had happened to Jerusalem and Judah. In the end, he thrust them from his presence. The fall of Jerusalem. Now Zedekiah rebelled against the king of Babylon. So in the 9th year of Zedekiah's reign, on the 10th day of the 10th month, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, marched against Jerusalem with his whole army. He encamped outside of the city and built a siege work around it. The city was kept under siege until the 11th year of King Zedekiah. By the 9th day of the fourth month of the famine in the city had become so severe that there was no food for the people to eat. Then the city wall was broken through, and the whole army fled at night. Through the gate between the two walls near the king's garden, though the Babylonians were surrounding the city, they fled towards Arabah. But the Babylonian army pursued the king and overtook him in the plains of Jericho. All his soldiers were separated from him and scattered, and he was captured. He was taken to the king of Babylon with Riblah, where sentence was pronounced on him. They killed the sons of Zedekiah before his eyes, and they put out his eyes, bound him with a bronze shackles, and took him to Babylon. On the 7th day of the 5th month, in the 19th year of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, commander Nebuzaradan, commander of the imperial guard and official of the king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem, set fire to the temple of the Lord, the royal palace, and all the houses in Jerusalem. Every important building he burnt down. The whole Babylon army, under the command of the imperial guard, broke down the walls around Jerusalem. Nebuchadnezzar, the commander of the guard, carried into exile the people who remained in the city, along with the rest of the populace and those who had deserted to the king of Babylon. But the commander left behind some of the poorest people of the land to work the vineyards and fields. The Babylonians broke up the bronze pillars and movable stands and the bronze sea that were at the temple of the Lord, and they carried the bronze to Babylon. They also took the pots, shovels, wick trimmers, dishes, and all of the bronze articles used in the temple service. The commander of the imperial guard took away the censers and the sprinkling bowls, all that were made of pure gold or silver. The bronze from the two pillars of the sea, stands which Solomon had made for the temple of the Lord. Was more than could be weighed. Each pillar was 18 cubits high. The bronze capital on top of the one pillar was 3 cubits high, and was decorated with network and pomegranates of bronze all around, and the other pillar with its network was similar. The commander of the guard took as prisoners Seraiah, the chief priest, Zephaniah, the priest next in rank, and the 3 doorkeepers. Of those still in the city, he took the officer in charge of the fighting men, took 5 royal advisors. He also took the secretary, who was chief officer in charge of conscription of the people of the land, 60 of the conscripts who were found in the city. Nebuzaradan, the commander, took them all and brought them to the king of Babylon at Riblah. There at Riblah, in the land of Hamath, the king had them executed. So Judea went into captivity away from her own land. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, appointed Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, son of Shaphan, to be over the people he left behind in Judea. When all the army officers and their men heard that the king of Babylon had appointed Gedaliah as governor, they came to Gedaliah at Mizpah. Ishmael, son of Nethiah, and Jonathan, son of Sarai, son of Tanhumuth, and Netophathai, Jathanian, son of Micaiah, and their men, and their reassure them and their men, do not be afraid of the Babylonian officials. He said, settle down in the land and serve the king of Babylon, and it will go well with you. In the 7th month, however, Ishmael, son of Nathaniel, the son of Elishama, who was of royal blood, came with 10 men and assassinated Gedaliah, and also the men of Judea and the Babylonians who were with him at Mizpah. At this, all the people, from the least to the greatest, together with their army officers, fled to Egypt for fear of the Babylonians. Jehoiakim is released. In the 37th year of the exile of the Jehoiakim, king of Judea, in the year Marduk became king of Babylon, he released Jehoiakim, king of Judea, from the prison. He did this on the 27th day of the 12th month. He spoke kindly to him and gave him a seat of honor, higher than those of the other kings who were with with him in Babylon. So Jehoiachin put aside his prison clothes, and for the rest of his life ate regularly at the king's table, day by day. The king gave Jehoiachin a regular allowance as long as he lived. This is the word of the Lord of God. Thanks be God.